Welcome to the DMF. I'm Justin Younts. This is part three. Tell me a little bit about, as you brought up Hightower, talk a little bit about that process of what you did to get to that character. Like, is that something that where'd that come from?
Good question. So the first thing that I developed with Hightower was her voice. I
Mm,
said, okay, what would Hightower sound like? And I loved the Godfather's voice. And I thought he was just so, you know, incredible. And I thought Hightower should talk like that. And
yeah.
um, and then the character really developed more while I was on set. Because it's an improv show, so you have two
Mm,
cameras on you for 4 hours straight, and you just you have a guideline, like you know where you're going, where your points are, and what is going to happen. But the exact dialogue, you create that, you improv that yourself. And then if something sticks, they might say stop, they stop the cameras and they do a retake. But really her development of being the sensible, sensitive, because I thought to myself, well, killer clowns, everybody hates, doesn't like killers, but how can we relate to a killer? What made her become this person?
mm,
And a lot of times is people that are shunned, right? Always pushed away and not accepted, not getting love, not getting hugs, not at ease. They always seek for more and then they react a certain way. They might have grew up with an abusive father and then learned to react a certain way, but nobody has shown them a different way. So I thought it would be so much more interesting if she would have these sensibilities. So she really, when we did the mockumentary, um, they asked me, okay, what are her characteristics? And I went by, well, my sister is very OCD. And I thought, what if she has a cleaning fanatic? She's a super clean. And and then she does, but she also wants to be loved. But in killing is just a side effect. That just happens, whoop-de-doo. And she didn't give it that much weight. And I thought that's how I created her.
As I when I was watching that, I really was fascinated by what your take was on creating that character. This was such an interesting, yeah, the way you would talk about it so nonchalantly. Well, just this, I just happen to be, a killer clown, not that, not I'm enjoying this and this is all I want, but this is kind of a side effect of, this is something I have to do, so I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of I think when we always create a character, we have to stay to a truth. So we're gonna pull from something that we have experienced or we have
Yeah,
lived. And then we create something because I've never killed people. I don't know what it feels like. So to me, it's
yeah,
like, well, it means nothing, right? So what if
yeah,
it doesn't mean nothing to her? Because it's so
yeah.
far-fetched. But people can relate to wanting to be loved and wanting to be accepted and having clean ticks and all of that and being stressed out and needing to meditate. And then I saw the birdcage, and because when we were filming we were going around the circus, and I said, okay, what would she be doing in here? And so we set it all up, and then we saw the birdcage, and I said, you know what? Hightower would go in that birdcage and hide in there when she's really depressed.
Yeah.
And they said, you can't get in that birdcage. I said, if you
That's
can
right.
get in it, we're filming it. And that's how it ended up being in it.
So how did you get into that bird cage? Because I've got that burned in
Um,
my head, that image of you getting in the bird. I'm
They
like,
like I did
how
this,
she
and they
get into
take the
that?
bird cake and they scoffed it over
Okay,
me,
so
and I,
they put
I
it
got
under
some
there.
scrapes and bloody, and I got some wounds from
Yeah.
it, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah, no, is it so cramped up in that thing? It was like, oh wow, that's great. And I was like, I bet that's her idea. So good. So when you were doing war manga, because I watched the video that you did, which I thought was really interesting, how you kind of just showed, here are the sides, here's how the brand, here's me coming to the thing. You talked about how, I can't post this till after it airs because you signed all the confidentiality things.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more though about, you know, warmonger. Like, is there something that you just was there like a little key that you felt like that locked you into that character, that role?
Well, I watched her. I'm big in comic books, and there's a comic book, and so I researched her first. I always research characters. whatever role I'm going to get, if there's not a specific one, I research. But this one was specific, so I knew what manga was written about. Who is she? What are her powers? She's an alien. She's bigger, larger than life. So I knew that she felt everything. There was everybody was just beneath her, and she was this
Mm,
god that could just create. So that was my base, and that's what I went with. And then, um, I mean, the choreography and all that that happens with Disney. They did all
yeah.
that. And um yeah, I really went by staying true to her character from what was written about her and who created her, because I always like when people stay true to the character that they wrote,
Yeah.
especially in animation or in comics.
What I liked was going back to the Billy podcast that you did with him. You talked about, the important, your lines. You mentioned the lines also in the Warmonger video with that. What is your process for learning lines? I think it's different for all actors, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So,
So the first of what I always do is I read the whole script
mm,
and then I put it down and I see what I remember. I think about it, and then I read it again, and then I will try to say the lines or the dialogue without looking at it, and just to see,
mm,
do I understand what they're talking about? What's the objective here?
yeah,
'Cause, there's always an objective. There's what kind of emotions am I trying to get out from you, or how am I driving the story forward? And the for me, it's like understanding the story first, because
mm,
once I understand it, then it goes here. Because if I'm
yeah,
just learning lines, then I'm just into the words and I have no connection to words. But if I still, go here, and I learned that a lot from Andy Matheny, who I study with as well, um, is to just learn where you are. What's the story here, and what's your backstory? And Billy talked about that too. Is once you then um, understand the story, then I record it. So then I take a tape recorder and I record the words. And when I'm driving, I listen to it and I repeat it. So it becomes my subconscious. And
mm,
once I then have it there, then it just becomes easier. But
yeah,
I will listen to the words all day long. I will do cardio, and the best times for me to learn lines is when I'm moving,
yeah,
because we never just sit still and says, okay, just let me do my lines, and then you do something else, because that's not reality. Because like right now, I'm moving and I'm talking, so I always found it very helpful to work out or to go for a walk or be driving or doing something while I'm learning the lines or while I'm saying the lines.
yeah. No, I think that's very important to do that so that you can, you know, like Billy said, if they ask you to go over here and there, you need to be able to do it. If you're just memorizing the lines stationary, as soon as they give you something else, they're gonna, throw it. But that's interesting. I like that process that you do. Um, I sense a lot of, the duty that you bring to the work. And I think that's, comes from, being German, that just doing the work. Would you agree, or am I making a false
You
assumption?
definitely, I'm a woman of action. For
Yeah.
sure. I definitely believe in doing the do. You have to. It's just like anything, you want to be really good at it. You have to do the do.
Yeah.
And that means I actually even produced my own things because I wanted to understand the behind this process. It's one thing to show up on set and just doing your lines, but to understand what does it take, and to be in an editing room, to know what makes it in the edit, who knows what not, and it makes you understand how you
Yeah.
approach what you say too, and where you pause, and the inflections, so they can edit it. If you just ramble on, then at some point you can't edit, right? So you want to have a
Yeah.
pause somewhere, just things like that. Um, yeah. What was the question? I was rambling
I,
on.
please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.